Welcome to another edition of, what are we calling it, Mark?
It's a liberal life, Lembit. We change each week, but I feel like it's a liberal life this week.
All right, welcome to It's a Liberal Life with me, Lembit Öpik, and
me, Mark Oaten,
where we find the facts and do our best to give a liberal perspective to the world as we see it. Do not adjust your set. Mark really looks like that, and I can't do any better. But hopefully you'll love the sound of our voices. And today we're going to discuss matters of interest to us, at least. One is the total ineffectual nature of our Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, who pretty much by his own confession admits no one's listening. What about you, Mark? What do you want?
There's another ineffectual one, and that's the Chancellor. I mean, things seem to be going from bad to worse. Everything seems to be going up when it should be going down.
Not quite true. Employment's going down, and so's growth.
Well, that you make my point. You make my points exactly. But look, there's a strong case to say that on the same sort of week that the Conservatives have reshuffled their front bench team, maybe it is time for Starmer to get tougher, to get rid of two of his weaker performing ministers, because as you rightly say, we haven't heard much from the Foreign Secretary, and we haven't unfortunately seen much effectiveness from his Chancellor. So maybe he needs to get tough on that. But I also want to touch on some of the other big announcements of the week. 16-year-olds getting the right to vote. Should they, Lembit? You on that?
We're all campaigned. I campaigned for that for years. For years I campaigned for it. But now, like with so many other things, like with euthanasia, which is assisted dying, I just don't think I can trust the government to be doing this for the right reasons. Can we just start with that then? Can we start with that?
Look, go on then.
I'll set the scene. For decades, when I was in student politics, then after that, when I went on to be a youth spokesperson for the party we were in, Lib Dems, I said, we need to have votes at 16. If you're old enough to pay tax and old enough to get married, you should be allowed to vote. And I get the point. But the only reason Labour wants to reduce the voting age is because they think that's going to help them not lose to reform. So that's a very cynical reason.
Yeah, and politics is cynical. And politics, of course, is all about making sure that you introduce politics which are going to help you when it comes to the next election. It's the same as when a political party suddenly decides that proportional representation is a good thing because they figured out it's in their interests. But despite the politics of this, I think it is a good thing. I welcome it. There are two issues, I think, though, I want to address. The first is it's not a given that actually this will benefit the Labour Party.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The two main beneficiaries of this are actually the Greens and the Lib Dems.
Oh, I'm not sure about that.
Well, I think so. Well, it's certainly not going to be reform. It's certainly not going to be Conservatives. But I don't.
No. I'm sure reform will do.
Make a case that reform could benefit from this.
I will in a minute, but just let's remember what you said there. Let's see if we can get a clip of what was said about this in Parliament. It might help set the scene in what Labour seems to think it wants to do. Could we just play that clip, please?
Lowering the voting age here in the UK, it will allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in the next general election for the first time. The current age is 18. The Labour Party made the promise in its manifesto last year. 16-year-olds are already allowed to vote in elections for the devolved parliaments in Scotland and Wales. The pledge is part of a new elections bill, which will also expand voter ID options and move towards automatic registration. The government says the move will ensure that UK's democracy is fit for the 21st century. Our political correspondent, Jack Fenwick, has more.
How old should you have to be able to vote in a general election? Last year, Labour pledged to lower the age for all UK elections to 16. That had already happened for some votes in Scotland and Wales. And today, ministers have said they hope the change will be in place by the time of the next general election, expected in 4 years.
This is a seismic change in terms of how our democracy works and giving young people a say in the future of our politics and our country.
But it's
now, I don't believe that they got this right. I just really, before we play the next clip, which is from Parliament itself, I think they've completely screwed this up, because I don't think that young people will vote for Labour because they see how utterly rubbish Labour is.
Well, I think, as I said to you before, there's an attraction for young people to vote for Greens. I think that a lot of young people care about the environment, and the Greens are kind of always feel younger, they're trendier. I've seen their spokespersons not wearing ties or suits. They seem more relatable. Then
Not
I think next,
outrageous.
What? Because they're not wearing a tie. Look, they look more relatable. I've seen them. They're really good on social media. I've seen a lot of their councillors performing on TikTok. I think the Greens have got a fresh approach to how they talk about politics, which young people might relate to.
Greens, they're just a joke. The Greens are a non-relevant, or less relevant now, non-credible bunch of extremists who want to bring in their particular kind of religion, which isn't based on any kind of solid science at all. I don't think young people are going to be fooled by this. Where's the climate emergency? It's raining.
No. Let's not go down that particular rabbit hole.
You said Greens. It's like red rag to a bull, green rag to a bull.
What I'm talking about is the approach, the style of politics. And I know you get what I mean. There is something, because there's not much responsibility that has come with the Greens, they seem to be untainted in a way. I think the Lib Dems, if they get this right, could also benefit from it. But one party that will not is Reform. And I'll tell you for why. If Reform keep making statements, for example, that they don't really support gay marriage and things like that, that is not going to play well amongst a much, much younger generation who are much more socially liberal than Reform are on many of these kind of issues.
Yeah, you say that, but then the thing about it is, I think Reform, that they're young, internally not brilliantly organised yet, I don't think. But there's something about Nigel Farage which has got the same wow factor as Boris Johnson. He's relatable. He is relatable. That's your phrase. And I think that's what they've got above every other party. And I think that probably would make quite a big difference, to be honest.
I think there is a popularity about Farage amongst a certain profile who quite like the straightforward, I'm having a pint of beer in the pub, a sneaky little fag outside. But I don't think that is particularly relatable for 16 and 17-year-olds. So what's going to be fascinating is how are the main political parties going to change their strategies in terms of communications to target this particular group? And one of the difficulties they'll have also is, where are they? How do they find them? Because the electoral roll, of course, will show people normally when they're turning 18 beyond. But the challenge for the political parties is, what do you do now to start to win over those 16-year-olds who at the next election will be 16? Well, that means they're 12 at the moment. So you've actually got to start thinking about how you communicate with 12, 13, 14-year-olds now so that you can win their votes the next election. That is a huge challenge.
Okay, now I'll just show you, if you can find it, what was said about this in Parliament. Tell me if 16-year-olds would find this kind of thing motivating. I don't think that they necessarily would. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's not without controversy. The Liberal Democrats have long been in favour of the move, but Reform say you shouldn't be able to vote if you're not old enough to be a candidate, and the Conservatives aren't happy either.
Why does this government think a 16-year-old can vote, but not be allowed to buy a lottery ticket, an alcoholic drink, marry or go to war, or even stand in the elections they're voting in?
And that's the point. That's the point, isn't it? That's the whole point. It's totally inconsistent. Now, I accept I used to stand on stages saying votes at 16, but I wanted a consistent position. You're either an adult at 16 or you're not. At the moment, at 16 and 17, you have to ask permission to get married. But
you're right. All of this needs tightening up. It needs to be rational, because you can't drive when you're 16. You can start driving when you're 17. There's the whole question about the lottery ticket, whether you can get a drink, whether you can get married, whether you can serve in the army, whether you have to be paying tax or not. All of these issues need to be brought together with a common age. And it would appear now that if you're talking about 16 being the voting age, then everything else should align around that.
Yeah, and that's the big issue for me. It's not consistent. I might be persuadable still to say at 16.
You always supported this, Lembit.
Yes, I did.
What's happened to you? You've got older. And the older you get, the more conservative and reactionary you're getting. Go back to radical roots, Lembit. Come on.
And you've got younger, have you, mate?
I
don't see evidence.
No, that's something on the screen. You can put a filter on to deal with that. But you can't put a filter. You can't put a filter on your attitudes. And you need to remember what you were like when you were radical and you were talking for the Lib Dems on these issues. Come on.
All right, maybe. Sorry. Go on. Finish your attack.
I've finished my time. I'm saying you need to remember your radical youth, and you're getting old and fuddy-wuddy now.
Maybe I do support it for one reason, and it is ironic. because I think that might help reform, but that's the wrong reason to make the change. I think really, to some extent, I accept your admonition. I think what I'm really saying is we need consistency. If we had time, I don't think we can do it. I'll ask the team, but I don't think they'll find it in time. There's a wonderful clip when Will, in the In-Betweeners, if you haven't seen the series, it's brilliant, is trying to buy a pint in a pub. And there's this Byzantine process by which he can get a pint as long as he gets some food, and then they pay somebody to buy him a drink, and it all goes horribly wrong. And it rather sums it up for me. But okay, well, we're not really necessarily disagreeing, because I don't like inconsistency, and I see your point, but I don't like the reason they're doing it. I think they, like you, think that Reform UK isn't going to get those votes, but I think they're quite likely to. Let's go back to the other thing that I thought we were going to talk about first, but we didn't, and that's the state of the economy. And let's have a look at some of the figures there. It's disastrous. Okay, this is from Tory, it's the Conservative Party Central Office, but Labour have lost control of the British economy. Inflation has gone up. Unemployment up. Gross domestic product growth actually down. Borrowing up, even today up. And debt up. It's abysmal, Mark. Absolutely abysmal.
You sound like the prime ministers when they're at the dispatch box and they say up, and then they're waiting for the backbenchers to get on and twig on, and every time they say something, and it's gone up, and they always get caught out when they suddenly say something about the economy, the growth has gone up. No, we meant to say down. It's gone down. Look, by all level of indicators, and the list you've got there on the screen demonstrates just how badly we are performing at the moment. And there comes a point when you have to say, look, is this natural? Is this something that could still be blamed on inheriting a mess from the Conservatives? Or a year into Labour, can we put some of the blame for this failure at their door? And I think now we can. I think bad decisions have been taken, particularly over the budget. They don't seem to have a handle anymore on how they're going to be able to manage and to balance the books, because the left wing of the party are changing the direction all of the time. And it's beginning to look very much like the Chancellor is an unlucky Chancellor, makes bad decisions. And that's not going to be confident boosting for this British economy. My question to you, Lembit, is Keir Starmer shuffle his pack?
Well, I think he probably should. And we'll talk about Lammy in a minute as well. I want to add one more to that list. Taxes up a phenomenal amount. We've got an exodus of thousands of millionaires leaving the country. I think we've got the largest exodus of millionaires of any country on the planet at the moment. And those people are wealth makers. Not all of them, but pretty much most of them are. So we've got this catastrophic mismanagement by Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor. And I understand why they've been blaming the Conservatives all this time, but it doesn't rub anymore, because these things are happening after Rachel Reeves had her big budget, which was meant to stop things and of going wrong. And she said very clearly she wasn't going to come back for more taxes. Well, it looks like she is. I think she's an absolute disaster area, Mark.
Look, I think some of the issues that you mentioned there are absolutely correct. There is, I think, an impression that happens in politics after a while. If things just keep going badly wrong and you're in charge, it sticks. And then there comes this tipping point where you become the problem. Even if she could justify all of it and say, look, this isn't my reasons, this isn't my decisions. In a sense, she is now becoming a symbol for failure. And that is really difficult, because you want a Chancellor that can go around to business, can walk the world stage, and can deliver confidence. Because economies are all about confidence. People predicting that the UK economy is going to do well. People wanting to invest in shares. The Bank of England feeling comfortable that it can start to bring interest rates down. Long-term planning and investment decisions where people feel the economy is going to be welcoming in this country. And none of that is there. And to a very large extent, that requires a strong Chancellor who can give clear indication and direction. Whether you liked him or not, you can look back at somebody like Gordon Brown and say he was a strong Chancellor. People understood that he understood it. And I don't think that people have confidence in Rachel Reeves.
Yeah, I think you're right. The team here found it very amusing in a dark way, very amusing speech made by Rachel Reeves. Let me cast your mind back to before the general election. This speech by Rachel Reeves before the 2024 general election speaks for itself. If we can play it, it's incredibly hubristic. See what she says. Can we just play that?
The great privileges of this job to get away from Westminster, to see the brilliant things being done by working people, by inventors and entrepreneurs, by businesses in every part of Britain. To see a country, a people, so rich in potential, but potential too often frustrated. It is Labour's mission to change that, to unlock that potential. It will take time, a decade of national renewal, but we will not shy from the challenges that we face. It is time for an end to the excuses, the short-termism, and putting politics before the public interest. The Prime Minister can just say the word. We are ready. Labour will fight the next election on the economy. Every day we will expose what the Conservatives have done to our country. Because instead of believing the Prime Minister's claims that we've turned a corner, the questions that people will ask ahead of the next election are simple. Do you and your family feel better off after 14 years of Conservative government? Do our schools, our hospitals, our police, our transport work better than they did 14 years ago? Frankly, does anything in our country work better than when the Conservatives came to office 14 years ago? The choice at the next general election is simple. 5 more years of chaos with the Conservatives that will continue Britain on a path of economic decline, or stability with a changed Labour Party that can offer hope with a long-term plan to make working people better off.
Well, it's so hubristic, it's unbelievable. I mean,
it's interesting. It's the speech that a shadow Conservative Chancellor could make about this Labour government in 3 or 4 years' time. And by every indication, you know, she's not been able to deliver on those promises. But I think what's really telling is she said it will take 10 years. And we haven't got 10 years. You can't have an economic policy which is going to require a 10-year payback time. People need to pay their bills now. People want the jobs now. People are fighting to pay their mortgages now. You don't have 10 years, Chancellor. You absolutely not. If nothing else, you've got a general election to fight in 4 years' time, and you'll be very lucky if you can get beyond that.
Yeah, I think we're looking at a loser there. And also, it's just the hubris of it. The fact that she's saying, oh, the Tories have let us down. Has anything got better? On every measure that she put there, pretty much, the Labour Party is failing, as we saw in the earlier chart. I can't see how she should survive a reshuffle, but then there's a problem. They've got such a paucity of talent. I don't know who could take over.
That was my next question. I mean, who would you put in place? Now, ideally, there could be some elder statesman from the back benches that you could bring forward and put in place. You know, sadly, Alistair Darling has died. He's not there. Gordon Brown isn't there. I'm trying to think who is there, who is a economically competent individual who you could put into that particular job. And I can't think immediately of anybody.
I'm thinking of a political giant, somebody who walks proudly around the world representing us with magnanimity and intelligence. And maybe David Lammy. David Lammy could do it. I mean, he causes instant laughter. I mean, it's so preposterous. He's so ridiculously bad.
We have 2 great offices of state, Chancellor and Foreign Secretary. When you look back at some of the giants that have held those in the past, Lord Parkinson, Robin Cook as Foreign Secretary, Gordon Brown as Chancellor, Sir Geoffrey Howe, Kenneth Clarke as Chancellor, Alistair Darling as Chancellor, Foreign Secretary David Cameron for the Conservatives, for example, who was there just before they got defeated. These are individuals who can cut it on the world stage. And I don't see David Lammy cutting anything, frankly, on the world stage.
No,
He doesn't.
He cuts himself a large piece of pie every day. He cuts himself a lot of cake, it's said. £500,000 worth for his department, apparently, in the first couple of hundred days. So he knows how to cut a cake and have a scrap with a taxi driver. I mean, it is ridiculous.
But it is a problem. It is a severe problem. Now, I think that the issue with the Chancellor is a bigger problem because that's affecting the economy, and confidence in her is definitely at a low ebb. Confidence in the Foreign Secretary can always be compensated because it tends to be the Prime Minister who will lead on those big world G7, G8, EU summit events. So to some extent, a poor performing Foreign Secretary can hide behind the Prime Minister, but a poor performing Chancellor can't. The Prime Minister has to have a strong Chancellor. So, I put the question again. You couldn't answer it last time, but who would you replace Lammy with? Who would you replace Rachel Reeves with? And the answer is a real struggle.
The only person who's got any modicum of talent is Wes Streeting, I think. But even he's not brilliant. He looks good because in the Valley of the Blind, the one-eyed man is king. I would say it's a very good short story, by the way.
I was one of those that thought a smart move by Starmer would have been to say to David Cameron, look, will you stay on? We've got a war in the Middle East. We've got a war in Ukraine. We've got huge international issues with Trump coming to power. We've got conflict in Syria and Iran. You could carry on for the next 2 years as a very independent type of foreign secretary. You could help us with these issues. You're embedded in it. You've got credentials. That would have sent a very, very strong signal. It would have also cleverly reached out to those soft, moderate conservatives as well.
Definitely. I see what you did there. James Cleverly.
Well, interesting that he's just been brought back today into the shadow cabinet. I'm surprised he's been brought back to shadow on housing. Again, if they put him opposite Lammy, that would have put more pressure on Lammy. Cleverly is also a class act and he's been foreign secretary.
We'll talk about the recent reshuffle in the Conservatives maybe next time. But let's focus a little bit on how utterly impotent David Lammy is. He made a speech in Parliament about the situation in Gaza, and he more or less says that these are all his complaints, but no one's listening.
System is inhumane, it's dangerous, and it deprives Gazans of human dignity. It contradicts long-established humanitarian principles. It creates disorder Hamas is now exploiting, with distribution points reduced from 400 to just 4. It forces desperate civilians, children among them, to scramble unsafely for the essentials of life. It's a grotesque spectacle, wrecking a terrible human cost. Almost 1,000 civilians have been killed since May, seeking aid, including 100, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this weekend alone. Netanyahu should listen to the Israeli people, 82% of whom desperately want a ceasefire, and to the hostage families, because they know it offers the best chance to bring their loved ones home. Those hostages may be hidden in cramped tunnels under the ruins of Gaza, but we will not forget them or Hamas's despicable actions, and we will continue to demand their unconditional release. The new Israeli...
And this is the problem. Nobody's listening. Nobody's listening. He can demand all he wants. All he did was give a shopping list of complaints, and you could say that we curated that particular piece of speech. But he just moans. And then he says, well, I've told Netanyahu, I've warned the Israeli government. Nobody cares what Lammy thinks. And he's destroyed our international credibility. And I actually feel more strongly about it than perhaps you do, because while Rachel Reeves is busy wrecking our economy, he has managed to pretty much single-handedly wreck our credibility on the international stage.
You know, we have a key role here to play as a bridge in so many different conflicts. That bridge between the approach that Trump is taking versus the EU. We're a great potential to be a bridge there. We are trusted in the Middle East by at least some of the parties there. We have a huge role to play in that. And it's sad because, you know, there used to be a day when our foreign secretary would be able to take a lead on these kind of issues. And it does desperately need some leadership from somewhere. And this is where, you know, controversially, I've said at least Trump has at times shown leadership. I don't, of course, agree with much of what he says, but he has gone out there and tried at the start to resolve the situation in Ukraine. But if you don't show leadership from this country, you're going to leave it to people like Trump. We have a great foreign office. We have fantastic diplomats. We have got great embassies throughout the globe. We're lacking a great foreign secretary at the moment, just when we badly need one. It's a great shame.
Who would you put into that position? Can you think of anyone?
What I've said, I would have kept Cameron, and I would have
within Labour. They're not going to do that. They just haven't got the maturity to do that cross-party thing.
And normally there'll be a time when I would be able to name you 5 or 6 people, perhaps who's lurking on the back benches, who could do this. The one figure that I think has got credibility is somebody like Hilary Benn, potentially. He has, I think, a great intellect. He's very diplomatic. I think he's got good levels of respect on all sides of the house. Whether he can cut it on the international stage or not, I don't know.
But there is one team that could do it. I would say if we want to save the country, we could have a new prime minister and a new foreign minister who could certainly make Britain stand tall on the international stage. I think we both know who I'm talking about.
I haven't got a clue who you're talking about. Tony Blair coming back?
No.
Give me it. Just
what's so funny about that?
Well, look, I look absolutely depressed and miserable. You look even more depressed and miserable.
Yeah, because you just wrecked your leadership campaign and that has been taken. And there's me, stalwart as always, standing behind you when we were kings.
A true friend, a true friend. Listen, on a more cheery note, the MPs are all off on recess soon. And what were your recesses like? Did you hit the beach? Did you escape from Parliament, or did you just stay in the constituency?
I'd go away for maybe a week. Just to explain, recess is what the mainstream media wrongly calls holidays. They shouldn't be holidays. They're the time when you're meant to be working in your constituency for your constituents who you work for. And I did that mainly. I would have spent probably all but maybe a maximum of 2 weeks in the constituency. For all the good it did me in 2010, if I'd realised that I was going to lose, then I'd have gone on every select committee freebie trip under the sun, but I didn't because I thought that wasn't right.
But I remember that last couple of parliamentary sessions in July. The temperature was hot. They probably still got the heating on in the House of Commons because Sergeants at Arms hadn't decided to turn it off. The temperature was stuffy. Everyone was getting tetchy. And I think there was that desperate need to be able to escape and get away from Parliament. And
what did you do then? What did you do?
I used to go to the constituency. I mean, I was fortunate and I had a lovely constituency, Winchester, with 56 amazing villages. So I did what I called my village tour. And yeah, it involved a lot of fates and it involved a lot of sponges being thrown at me and stuff like that. But I also tried.
Well, just in the street, they just come and start throwing things at you in the street.
No, that was just Belinda and the children, to be fair. I tried to get away with the family, but then back in those days, we had these things called pagers, and they never stopped going off. And there's far too many family holidays spent with me hanging around the hotel swimming pool, on a phone, on the beach, on a phone, going back to Westminster because something had happened. And that for me is, one of those huge regrets that I didn't actually take the opportunity to fully engage in holidays and fully engage in getting some respite as well, because you do need it. You do get burnt out.
Yeah, I say now I should have gone on more trips and so on. But in practice, if I had my time again, I probably wouldn't, because I was totally engaged in the job. And like you, I actually felt an obligation, a profound obligation to be with my constituents. Though just it still annoys me to an extent that the media very, very callously really always say, oh, they're off on their long holidays. If you do the job right, then you do your recess as well. and you're seen all over the constituency. But there we go. I'm also one of the very few people who tends to stick up for MPs in terms of their salaries, because somebody said to me the other day, oh, well, look how much we're paying for these terrible people. I say, yeah, if you paid them more, then we get good people and the terrible people wouldn't win. But there we go. That's another story.
That's another story. And I think on that note, what's the phrase? You pay peanuts and you get monkeys, you know? And at the end of the day, the quality of the politicians we have at the moment is not what it was like back in the day. But now we're sounding like two angry old men. And maybe that's what our new program should be called. Angry old liberals? I don't know.
That's what you were criticizing me about. So we've come elegantly full circle.
I was happy when I started this broadcast, and now I've ended up miserable and grumpy thanks to you, Lembit Öpik.
I feel better. You feel worse. That's as it should be. Thanks very much for watching. Let us know what you think. You'll get this on X and also on Unprecedented TV on YouTube, and we'll be going to Rumble soon as well. A big thanks to Mark, and thanks to the team as well. Agree or disagree, let us know what you think. That's the essence of free speech. I'm Lembit Öpik.
And I'm a grumpy Mark Oaten.
And this is called...
Grumpy
What?
Grumpy Old Men.
Okay, that'll do for now. See you next time.